Welcome back to This Week in Magic Online Finance. I'm your host, Chaz Andres, and let's get started with the news. Now, if you've played any Standard over the past month or so, you're aware that this is pretty much the Scarab God's format. That has started to change in recent days, though. The most popular deck in the format by far right now is Temur Energy, and it's pretty much the same build of Temur Energy that was making waves during the waning days of summer. This is a deck with very few Ixalan cards in it. There are maybe a couple of Carnage Tyrants and some sideboard tech, but that's really about it. And if you look down the line, you're going to see a lot of the same problems everywhere. Ramunap Red is the clear runner-up deck in Standard right now, very few Ixalan cards in that. Mardu Vehicles, starting to make a comeback, almost no Ixalan cards. Now, this is not a bad format by any means, but I think we're all hoping that the Pro Tour is going to shake things up and hopefully introduce some new piratey flavor into the format. In the meantime, expect the Amonkhet block cards and the Kaladesh block cards to keep gaining in value, while even Ixalan's best spells are going to keep dropping. Luckily, Modern is in a much better place. At the Star City Games Open last week in Cincinnati, there were 8 different archetypes represented in the top 8, including a brand new deck that took down the entire event. We're gonna get to that one a bit later, but right now I just wanted to revel in how wide open Modern is. There are 20 or 30 decks that could take down any given event, and that's awesome. I expect the prices to continue to reflect that Modern is probably the most fun, wide open format in the game right now. Let's move on to gaining ground, where Standard was pretty quiet this week. In fact, there was only one card in the entire format that gained more than a ticket, and that's Chandra Torch of Defiance, which gained about a ticket and a half, up from 34 to 35 and a half. And if you remembered last week, Chandra Torch of Defiance actually dropped 6 tickets from 40 down to 34, so you could view this as more of a market recorrection than any kind of meaningful trend. That said, the market fundamentals actually look pretty strong for Chandra Torch of Defiance right now. Ramunap Red, Temur Energy, Mardu Vehicles, these are all decks performing really well right now, and they're all decks that run Chandra Torch of Defiance. So even though this gain looks pretty small and doesn't look like it's the start of something bigger, it's possible that if things continue in this direction, Chandra will end up back over 40 again before long. Let's move on to Modern, where the 2 cards that gained the most ground this week are the 2 most expensive staples in the 4-color Humans deck that took down the Star City Games Open in Cincinnati. I'm talking about Noble Hierarch, which gained 9 tickets from 18 up to 27, and Cavern of Souls, which jumped 8 tickets from 22 up to 30. Now, I've heard some people call this deck a pile of jank, but it looked good on camera, and it does seem fairly well positioned in the Modern metagame. It legitimately won that event. And I think it's going to be a real deck going forward, but I also think that it's best to sell into the hype just in case. It's a deck that came out of nowhere to win a major event. Chances are, this is the high watermark. I like selling these cards into the hype, especially when the entire community is focused on this deck and thinking about these cards. Moving on to the biggest loser, where we have a real doozy in Standard. It's the Scarab God, which dropped 11 tickets from 48 down to 37. That's almost a quarter of its value. So has Standard moved on from its most expensive staple? Well, yeah, it kinda has. Temur Energy has replaced Sultai Energy at the top of the metagame, and then a bunch of the second tier decks don't need the Scarab God at all. Ramunap Red, Mardu Vehicles, Blue-White Control, none of these decks run the Scarab God. Now, I doubt we've seen the last of this guy, and the Scarab God's price has somewhat stabilized in this 35 to 37 ticket range. But this is a legitimate shift in the metagame. It's not just people abandoning Standard and getting out of its most expensive staple. I really think the future of the Scarab God's price is going to be determined by what decks show up at the Pro Tour. So in Modern, the biggest loser, a little bit of a mea culpa. See, it's Liliana of the Veil. It dropped another 4 tickets this week from 61 down to 57. After last week, I told you it had hit rock bottom. So what happened? Flashback drafts. Leon of the Veil is an Innistrad, and there have been Innistrad flashback drafts for Halloween all week long. I forgot to check the schedule on those, and I'm sorry. That said, it does seem like, and I know I'm saying the same thing again, Leon of the Veil has hit rock bottom. It's rebounding a bit. I really do think this is a long-term buy. It just might take a few more weeks to get up there than I'd anticipated. Now, Coraline here would like me to tell you that this week's Sneak of the Week is Bontu's Last Reckoning. Bontu's Last Reckoning is one of those cards that was way too hyped and then it was way too dismissed, and now it's starting to show up in both Standard and Modern. It's gained about a ticket over the past week, jumping from 3 to 4, but its price chart has been on the increase for longer than that, and it's still pointing upward. I wouldn't be surprised if Bontu's Last Reckoning ends up somewhere in the 6 to 7 ticket range before all is said and done. Now, I finish off the week by taking a look at the MTGO Traders hot list. These are the cards that MTGO Traders is paying a little bit extra on because they're hot right now. And you can find the list yourself at mtgotraders.com/hotlist or on Magic Online at hotlistbot and hotlistbot2. Now, since Temur Energy is the hottest deck in Standard right now, it should come as no surprise that most of its staples are on the hot list. You can sell your Chandra Torch of Defiances for 34 tickets, you can sell your Botanical Sanctums for about 10, your Spire Bluff Canals for 7, even your Bristling Hydras for about 3.5 tickets. And unless you're playing this deck or planning to in the foreseeable future, I'd sell into the hype, just like I suggest with any best deck in the format. Things change. That's all I got for you this week. Don't forget to join me next Monday for another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance. And in the meantime, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. There's a ton of good stuff on here and you're gonna love it.